As we begin to welcome students back for another school year, the teacher shortage continues to impact schools. It's an issue the entire country has faced for over a decade. But here in the North Country, we're starting to see relief.
What we're calling the teacher shortage is something you have to go back about 10 years, maybe 12 years to get a good picture of. Because we've been seeing this since about 2012, somewhere in that ballpark. Maybe even a little earlier than that. School districts were experiencing great financial pain because of reductions in state aid. The gap elimination adjustment and other things were causing districts to have to cut their staffs. So if you're a rational, reasonable, smart young person in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, thinking, golly, I'm seeing lots of teachers laid off, do I go into that pipeline? Probably not, right? So even though it's a great job and even though it's a great place to work and a great life, a rational person at that time probably wouldn't say, golly, sign me up for something where I'm going to have a hard time finding a job.
For BOCES programs, it's a little more difficult to find qualified teachers due to them needing their expertise in niche fields like welding, cosmetology, or veterinary services. That's when they look to universities for support in supplying these passionate and qualified individuals in their schools.
There's been a clear focus here in New York State on some of those shortage areas, in particular in science, technology, engineering, math, also related service providers like special educators, modern language educators have been very difficult for districts to hire in the last few years. Here at Oswego, we're really excited about the growth in our education programs, both in the short term since 2020, and if we pull that lens further back over the last decade, we've seen enrollment increases of about 10 to 12% across our School of Education majors. Some of the fastest growing areas are career and technical education, trade education, bringing welders into public schools to offer those curriculum, often through boards of cooperative educational services or our local BOCES. Technology education is growing rapidly. We're seeing increases in adolescence education, childhood education, of course, and also our Spanish education majors. And so we're really optimistic that we can continue to build that interest in the field, not only to bring them to campus, but to give them a great experience so that they're classroom ready on day one when they're hired.
It may not be a surprise that COVID severely affected employment in schools. Not only was it getting more difficult to find qualified educators, but the pandemic was a catalyst for current employed teachers to leave the field, and schools struggled to quickly fill those positions.
We're seeing teachers maybe moving to other areas. We're seeing teachers wanting to stay home with their children. We're seeing teachers take totally different career paths because they find that maybe teaching is not for them, or the burnout rate for teaching really heightened during COVID 2020. We found, I used to sit back 15 years ago and review applications as a high school principal, and I would have 30 plus applications, let's say for an elementary position or a social studies position in high school. And we just don't see that anymore. Maybe we get 8 or 9 for these positions. That is starting to take a little bit of an uptake.
In the North Country region, teacher recruitment is more important than ever. We're seeing a gradual comeback of teachers in support for aspiring and current educators.
It's very challenging today in this day and age to be a teacher. However, it's also probably one of the most rewarding institutions there is out there. And I would encourage people, if they're interested, to get into a classroom, get into a school, talk to principals, talk to teachers, and experience what it's like when that spark occurs when a child learns a new word or can solve a math equation. It's amazing, it's magic.
The greatest gift that we get as educators is to see that student, that learner have that spark. And as a faculty member, it was one of the things that I knew I had the best day of the week, the month, the year when I could inspire that. It is truly inspiring to the work that we do as educators.
For WPBS Weekly, I'm Samantha Keeney.